Everybody ready? Yep. Johan, sätt dig ner. Billing, tyst. Okay, we're going to talk about speed, but I'm going to do this a little differently. This presentation is more like a guide for open discussion. Okay, it would be super boring for me to just stand up here and tell you about speed and how to be fast, and you wouldn't get a lot out of it. So as we go through this, I'll point out some certain things about, in most cases, how to train to maximize your speed. And you guys throw questions and ask me things throughout so we can actually discuss speed. Okay? Scientifically, this is what determines speed. Okay? It all goes back to physics. Force equals mass times acceleration. Your velocity is the distance you travel over time. This is actually speed. It's called velocity because you give it a vector quantity. This is the point where I like to point out. It doesn't matter how fast you run a 40-yard dash if you can't move 10 feet sideways quickly. Okay? And power is the amount of energy you expend over time. Okay? Speed is the distance you cover over time. Force and your power are what make you fast. Okay? Now, from a standpoint of just this one equation, force is mass times acceleration. Why do we lift weights?
To put more force in the ground.
To put more force in the ground. We're trying to get stronger. We're trying to make F bigger all the time. Okay? The only other way we can make F bigger without getting stronger is to make M smaller. Okay? That's the mass. I talked about this with the guys. One way to think about that is, if I weigh 300 pounds and I'm soft, I'm going to be a lot faster when I'm 260 and I'm not soft. Okay? Because we made this smaller. Alright? That's just from losing mass. If you add strength on top of that, then that changes everything. Now your F got bigger, your M got smaller, so this whole thing will get bigger. Okay? Now mass overall, nobody asked me about this, which surprised me. Do you gain mass when you lift weights?
No, you can't.
No?
No.
You don't?
You gain mass when you recover and refuel the muscle.
Okay, that's a good answer. Okay. So yeah, you're trying to put on weight, right? You're trying to get bigger. So why does it work if you're getting bigger?
Because the mass is an effective mass, not an induced mass.
It's an effective mass for what?
An effective mass is a net of high force.
That's why it works. Okay? Now, notice I haven't talked about the A. Okay? The only thing we can train here is technique. All the rest of this is DNA. Okay? Your muscles and your DNA, your gene makeup determines how quick you can be. All we can do with A is train mechanics. Okay? We train how you can move. Now we can take a guy, and this is why, like you do combine training. If I want a guy to run a faster 40 and I have 6 weeks to do it, I know just from watching this guy run, he's probably got a really bad start. If I work on his first 3 steps in his arm drive, I just change his 40 time. Okay? Now he goes to the combine, he runs a quicker 40 and I look like a guru, and all I really did was say, hey, everybody sucks at this, let's change these 2 things and move on. Okay? The power deal, kind of transition this over here. I'm going to get all the science out of the way and then we're going to just talk. Okay? The velocity force curve. Okay? Power and strength basically. Everything of power is going to be over here. Okay? So like at this point here where basically velocity's through the roof and force is minimal to nothing is like a vertical jump. No weight. If we come way down here, we're talking about a lot of force, very little velocity. That's like a max effort deadlift. Okay? What we're trying to do training-wise to maximize speed is we're trying to develop more force, right? But we want to do it as quickly as possible. So we're trying to work in that part of that curve where we're getting the best of both worlds. Now overall, over time, with an athlete, and this is why the guys in the NFL are just sick freaks, because they can maximize this based on their genetic makeup, and we're trying to always increase force, right? So if we keep training this over time with an elite athlete, we actually shift that curve. The velocities get higher, the forces get bigger, okay? So that's the whole premise of why training works to increase speed. There you go. That's the number one thing to do to get faster. Okay. What are we training? What are we training to get faster? The answer's right there. Okay, glutes, hamstrings. Glutes are the most important muscle for shooting your body. Okay? Every time you take a step, it's the muscle that actually pushes you forward. Okay? And then the hamstrings are the muscle that once your foot is down, pulls your body back over your leg as you go. So if you're super strong here and super strong here, you suck at running. Okay? And that's just kind of the way it is. Your hamstrings have to balance your quads, and you got to have a big butt if you want to run fast. And that's how it works. Okay? Your cannon shoots from the back. Movement mechanics. Any of you guys, what are some of the things we worked on just simply in the weight room on the first day?
Keeping the core tight.
Core tight. Okay? We've got to stay tight, put force in the ground, right?
Yeah.
What's something else? What?
Having our foot pointed forward,
Toes up. Why is that important?
so that you get the full force of the foot. And
The full force through the leg when your foot hits the ground. Slide over here so you guys can see my foot better. Okay. If my toe hits the ground when I'm running like this, I have to scoop through my leg. Okay? So if I scoop and pull, now my whole body just became a weak link. Okay? If my ball of my foot, just under my toes, smashes the ground when my leg hits, then all of that force comes straight through my body when my leg extends. Does that make sense? Okay? And we also talked about from a shin splint point of view. Okay? People tearing up that muscle in the front of the calf there. If you're always grabbing with your toe, that force isn't applied through your leg the right way. So it's actually like a shear force on that muscle, and it kind of tears it away from the bone, and that's why your shins hurt. Okay. A lot of people ask me why I picked this random picture of some chick running. This is like perfect form. Okay? Her leg is fully extended through her hip, 90-degree bend, toes up. Notice she's actually not touching the ground. Okay? That means when that back foot hit the ground, boom, she was like a cannon when that leg hit. Arm drive, all the way back, all the way forward. Something I want to point out here. A lot of coaches hate and try to uncoach when guys bring their arms across their body running. We don't want the arm coming across the body, but naturally when you're moving fast, your arm comes back to center. Okay? When a guy's moving fast, he'll probably never be outside his shoulders like that. Okay? Does anybody have any questions so far? Anything?
I guess the arm movement is going to be determined somewhat on how the body reacts to that as well, right? If they're kind of starting to wobble due to the arms
Yes.
kind of moving sideways.
Yes, and that's a good point too. Just bringing that up. If you have a guy who's not tight, okay, running, his hips are going to wiggle when he runs. He's going to bounce from side to side and leg to leg. When they do that, his arms have to go with him. Okay, so you're going to have a hip and an elbow in opposite positions instead of in a straight line. Some guys, nice and tight here, they run real tense. They swing their arms like this. That guy's taking all his time away because he's putting all his force here and here instead of behind him. Okay? And then another thing, we didn't get any of this because we're not doing like elite sprint work, is the tension. Okay? You want all the tension going to the ground, so you need your body to be relaxed. And this is why you see all those sprinters like, you know, doing all that stuff before a race and whatnot. They're trying to keep loose. You watch Usain Bolt run a race, his cheeks are flapping while he's running, and then he smiles the last 20 meters, you know? That guy's just having fun moving fast, okay? The nervous system. This is the part where things start to get a lot more tricky, because this is where it gets into how your brain and your muscles work together, okay? This is why it has to be maximum effort all the time. Your nervous system is going to basically take all the inputs you give it at one time, whether it's 10%, 50%, or 100%. But that's also all you're going to get back out of it. Okay? I always throw this in here so people understand why it's so important to go 100% all the time, especially at practice. Okay? If you want to run fast, you have to run fast. You can't run fast when you want to if at practice you're running 60% on all the punt drills. Okay? That's an opportunity to practice sprinting. And if you're doing it at 50%, then you're going to be 50% fast. Okay? Okay, and I'll get you these spreadsheets. Okay. Physiologically, this ties right back to the nervous system, how it all works together, okay, from an intensity standpoint. This is what all the research that these guys did years and years ago in Russia and Austria and all over the place, and they've put it all together in these charts. Now I give every chart because I think it's important to look at what each guy saw a little bit differently, okay? Now these are all the technical terms here, but what it really comes down to is, are we doing aerobic conditioning? Are we trying to train for long distance, okay? Not long distance, but just, let's see, a 400-meter race, okay? That'd be like here. Alactic sprint, this is football, okay? This is what we're training speed for. Maximum strength and hypertrophy is weight room work, and then anytime you're learning a technical element. And these are listed this way because these are in descending order of what taxes your nervous system the most. Learning a new skill taxes your nervous system more than anything because your body has to figure out what it's doing first. Okay? So if we're adding new drills, we want to do that at the beginning, not at the end, whether it's practice or a workout. Next is the max strength or hypertrophy training, and then sprinting. Okay? Now on the other side here, it talks about the compatible training modalities, and all that is training that complements the training you've done. So if we're going to do sprint training, these are the other things that go along pretty good with sprint training, in that order. If we're going to have a max lift day, these are the things that go along well with that. Okay? So you can see how they kind of counteract each other in there. Notice down here, he's got the same things, and he throws over here what you don't do on the days you do those things. All right? For example, if we're going to do alactic sprint, you don't want to get glycolytic. Okay? And this is the main argument against traditional conditioning. You put guys through a heavy practice and then you run gassers for 15 minutes at the end, you just did that. You just nullified your game. All the sprinting you just did was just wasted. Okay? Training parameters here, and this is where it gets into how I program my speed training. Okay? So it gives me my intensity levels here. All right? I don't even worry about any of this. I'm not training cross countries, swimmers or skiers or anybody, and I'm not training any kind of marathon runners. We have to worry about this a little bit just because things build up over time. So our guys have to be conditioned over time, especially in a no huddle spread offense. And then you've got your fast stuff. Okay? Now notice here the rest time difference between those two, one being capacity and one being power. This is where we get into the difference in training. Okay? Alactic anaerobic power is max effort. That's 10-yard sprints, 20-yard sprints. Okay? That's the first 3 steps. That's running a play. All right? This next one, same time frame, but the rest changed. So now we're doing exactly the same thing. We're taking a shorter rest. That's how we build condition. Okay? So those first 2 things right there are where we're focusing on football. All right? The rest of this is an explanation of how many basically sets and reps of this stuff to do and what kind of a time frame to use in between it to maximize it.
So just what would the general, like the reps in each set would just differ between different.
Well, like here, okay. I'm doing power and capacity.
Uh-huh.
I want my work intervals to last about 10 to 20 seconds.
Okay.
Okay? The rest interval is going to be about 3 minutes, and we're going to repeat it 5 to 7 times in one series. Now, the series is where it gets fun. Like we might say we're going to do 2 series of 5 10s with 2-minute rest. Okay? So we're going to run 10-yard sprints, 2 minutes of rest. We're going to do it 5 times. Then we're going to take a break. Probably like a 5 to 10 minute break. Full recovery. And then repeat series 2. Okay? And all it is, it's about maximizing your recovery so that you can maximize the effort the next time, so that you're training your nervous system at 100%. Okay? The rest of these are just other guys' version of the same thing. They change the times a little. Some guys change the work ratios. Instead of giving you a time frame, they say, well, if you're going to run for 10 seconds, you rest for 10 seconds. Like it's just kind of a difference in looking at that. Restorative stuff. That's where we do all our aerobic work. If we're doing any kind of aerobic work with our guys, like we'll have our players on a restorative day run, let's see, what we do, like 1040s. But we do it so you run a 40 and then you like walk down to the other goal line and then you walk back and run another 40. Like there's constant recovery and rest in there. You're not running max effort on those days. We're just trying to get some heart work done. Same thing, different guy. Okay? This guy throws in a different type of training here, but irrelevant for football. And he breaks everything. Verskahansky here breaks everything into nervous system load. So everything he talks about has to do with the intensity, whether it's max, whether it's high, whether it's low. All this stuff is all low intensity, even though he puts like max VO2 on here. That's max cardio, but really low nervous system intensity. Okay? Now, I bled this into the first 3 steps because I think this is the weakest link in most sprinting. Okay? Most guys have no idea how to get off. They just try to get their feet going fast. Alright? So, first 3 steps are your power steps. Should they be big steps or small steps? Big. Real big. They should cover a lot of ground. Because you're covering a lot of ground, it will look slow when you're watching it, and it will feel slow when you're doing it, okay? How many guys watched the NFL Combine, any of the guys run the 40s? How many guys, when they ran, you were like, man, he's slow, and then it was like 4.5? Yeah. It's because of the first 3 steps. Those guys cover almost 7 yards in 3 steps. First 3 steps, cover ground, okay? The importance of the first 3 steps. Your first step, you're down low, okay? And receivers, where are my receivers? Do I have any receivers here? Couple, okay. That whole forward fall thing, okay, you guys need to practice that more. When you're forward in that first step, your first step is where your back knee comes up the highest to make your second step the most powerful step you take. Okay? First one's all leg drive. Second one is how high you get your knee up under you and how much ground you cover before it hits the ground again. Okay? So those falling starts, that's what those are for. You guys should be falling onto that next leg, not falling and running. Okay? You want to cover ground on that. The other part of the first 3 steps, arm swing. Okay? If I'm down, and this has more to do with combine time, sorry.
That's fine.
That's what I do. I move around. I move around all the time.
Fine, relax.
Okay. So if I'm down in a 3-point stance, or I'm down in, my stance as a receiver, how are you going to gain momentum? Nobody? How am I gaining momentum off the line of scrimmage? Okay, arm swing. It's all leg drive the first time, right? So how do I give myself an advantage? If I'm here, arm swing. That's what that arm swing, you throw that arm to propel yourself forward. And again, you're trying to maximize the distance to the second step. Okay? Just from a training point of view again, I pulled this up. These things. This is a progression. I'll get you this also.
Nice.
These are things to work on to keep your body the way you need it to be fast. How many guys found out their hips were too tight to move this week? Yeah. Slows you down a lot, doesn't it? Okay. So what's this talk about right off the bat? First thing, mobility and mechanics. You got to be able to move. Okay. Then you get the warm up right, bilateral stability. Okay. All that means is stable on 2 feet. This is doing things like coming down, holding a squat. Okay. Just doing things in a position where you're holding the muscle for a little bit to get it turned on. Bilateral explosion, jumps. Okay. How fast can you get in and out of your hips? The unilateral stuff, we did a lot of this, didn't we? Stand on one leg. Can you stand on one leg? You know, we did back and forth.
And nobody could.
Well, a few people. And then you take it right to jumping again. So you go from stable to moving. Okay? So the progression's pretty easy. Once you get warmed up and get moving, you go from stability to movement. Then we do accel decel. Okay? Why do we do accel and decel first?
Takes a lot from your nervous system.
Takes a lot from your nervous system. A lot more movement. A lot more taxing on the body to stop. And then we do top end speed. Okay? And then they call it energy system development. Basically, if they're going to do any kind of shuttling or cut work, they throw it in at the end because your guys are already tired and these are shorter drills. So it becomes more like conditioning after they've run. Okay? And then notice they do all this and then say, now go lift. Okay? And that's just a matter of, again, how the nervous system works. You want to do all your high intensity stuff first and then go lift. Alright? And it actually helps with the strength a little bit, as long as you don't over sprint. Okay? And then the rest of these are just progressions of exercises that fall into this program guide. Okay?
Very nice.
Does anybody have any questions? Not at all. Man, killing me, guys. None. Crickets. I got crickets. Okay. That's it?